Hey flower friends, I am in the kitchen and today I am going to pre-sprout my ranunculus and some dahlias. We are going to start with ranunculus first, and it's not a hard process, but it does take a couple steps. The first thing you're going to want to do is get some kind of a container, whether it's a mason jar, a bowl, some kind of watertight container that will hold your corms. Then you are going to take your corms that have been dried over winter, or perhaps you had some shipped to you, and all you're going to do is plunk them into room temperature water. Now, what I've researched or found online is that it's best if you can have a source of aeration in your water. A couple things you could do: if you have one of those fish aerators, you could put that in a bucket and perhaps use some of this netting and just close it up tight with a label in it, plunk it into a 5-gallon bucket with your fish aerator and let it go to town. You could, if you are able to have a slow drip from your faucet, just slowly drip into the container. Or what I do is I usually will come by and add a little bit of water or swirl around the water that's in the container every half hour or hour. That's usually what I do. I let my corms soak for 3 hours, and that's what I've had good luck with. I have heard anywhere from 3 hours to 24 hours. So experiment, figure out what works for you and what you have success with. It may depend just on everybody's region and the corms that you get. Now, once your corms have been soaking for however amount of time you have decided to soak them for, they are going to look like sea creatures. They will expand and plump up a little bit. I always find it hard to tell when people show on camera the dried corm versus a soaked corm. Let's see if I can get one out here. I mean, it's cleaner, obviously, but in person you can tell that the dried corm is pretty dry. It's pretty brittle. It's kind of like a old piece of wood almost. The soaked corm here is more pliable. It plumps up, which is again hard to tell on camera, but it looks saturated. And they do increase in size a little bit. I mean, these little tentacle things here must fill with some amount of water to plump them up and make them look like they are a little bit more alive. I have several jars here. I pulled the label off of the packaging just so I remember what they are. In the grand scheme of things, I will be planting these out in the cut flower garden, and then once the season is done, I will dig them up so I can plant them again next year, and they will all be mixed. So once we have the ranunculus corms soaked, what I'm going to do is get my soil ready. For this, I typically use just potting soil. They are going to be in the container for 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks. I believe it's a little bit different than when you seed start and are looking for seed starting mix. These are just looking to get their roots in the ground, and I think potting soil is perfectly fine for that. To start ranunculus, I do not need a ton of materials. I will have potting soil, as I mentioned. This is just regular potting soil. I'm going to add water so that it's not dry. It can form a clump, but it's not going to wring out any water. I also have a 10-20 tray here. There are not holes in the bottom of this. I'm not going to be watering these enough that they're going to be dripping through the bottom, so I've had pretty good success with containers without holes. You can use any kind of container for this. If you have old plastic containers that you've perhaps gotten from the grocery store, recycle them, use them for this project. Basically, you just need some kind of a vessel that will hold soil and is about 2 to 3 inches deep. That should work just great. All right, you also need your ranunculus corms. These are all pre-soaked for 3 hours. The last item I need are labels. And I am gonna put the date on here just because I'm curious how fast they will start to show growth. I have several varieties of ranunculus this year. If you watched my unboxing video in the fall, you can catch up on what those varieties are. I will put a quick picture up on the screen as I tell you what these varieties are. I have, I think, 20 corms from Jesse at Bear Flower Farm. And then from Basket of Flowers Farm, which is just north of us in Wisconsin, I picked up 20 of each variety of Chamalo and Barbie, Violet, Porcelain, White, and La Belle Champagne. All right, so the hard work has been done. The rest of this is really easy. All we're gonna do is fill up your container with your soil. I would say 1.5 inches, maybe. If you're using a 10-20 tray, I will fill it about 2/3 full. What I'm looking for here is basically enough that when the roots start to sprout in 4 to 7 days, that they have somewhere to go. I'm hoping that I will only have these in here for maybe 3 weeks, and then I'm planning to put them out in a small caterpillar tunnel, is that what you'd call it, or a low tunnel? Over the past couple of years, I've been trying to work on getting these outside faster. They enjoy cool weather, so the sooner you can get them out in reasonable temperatures, the better that they'll grow, the taller they'll grow, and the more productive they'll grow, the more life you'll get out of them and the more you can enjoy. I believe they can handle temperatures to maybe 28. I guess I should have done my research on that, but they can handle a light frost. If it's gonna get that cold or maybe a little colder, I would consider covering them with a row cover if they are not already protected. But they're pretty tough little flowers, and that's where they're gonna grow and thrive. I'm basically going to take my label, stick it in here, and then for the corms, there's usually a flat side, and that's where the stem grew last year. The bottom side is pretty pokey. These are like tentacles coming down. You want to plant them tentacles down, flat side up, so the stem can grow out of that flat spot. And all I'm gonna do is just push them into the soil pretty gently, not very hard. I'm not pushing them down a certain depth, I'm just seeding them in the soil enough that they aren't gonna move around much. For spacing on this, it can be fairly close. They're not gonna grow in here very long. If you are planning to grow them in here for longer, I would suggest that you start them in something that's a little deeper to give them a little extra room to root, and space them out a little more. But because I'm going to take them out of here within a couple weeks, their roots will not be so large that it will be difficult to untangle them. All right, I've pulled a few out because when I look at these, it looks like there's two, it's really hard to tell on the camera, there's 2 flat spots, and ranunculus corms will multiply. So this might have been one corm when it was planted last spring, but over the course of last summer, it multiplied, and if you gently wiggle it apart, I now have 2 corms. That's the great thing about ranunculus and the varieties that you're legally able to keep over winter. Sometimes you can multiply your crop. There's one more here that looks like I can split it. Gently wiggle it apart. I don't want to rip off these tentacles if I can help it. Into perfectly viable corms. There are some, I don't know the kinds because I don't get those kind, but there are some where you're not allowed to dig up the corms in the summer and then save them and replant them. So just be aware, do your research. I'm going to continue that process of just planting them in the soil until I have all of them planted. I hope I can fit them all in this tray. These corms are gorgeous, they're huge. You can buy corms in different sizes. Generally speaking, the larger the number, like a 5 would be larger than a 3, which would be smaller than a 7. So if you're looking for larger corms, then I would suggest buying a larger number. Whoa, that one had water in it still. Not a problem. I do have one other, not really a variety, but because I've been planting them for a couple years and saving my own corms at the end of the season, I have a mix. Again, most are from Basket of Flowers Farm, so similar to the colors that I already talked about. But I will be starting the pre-sprout process tomorrow. All right, so I have the first tray pretty much planted. Very excited about that. There's 100 corms in here, roughly. There are some that I was able to divide, but generally speaking, there's 100 corms in here. The last step, which according to my research might be optional, I'm just gonna cover this a little bit. I wanna cover it enough that I don't see the top of these corms. If they're poking through a little bit, I think that's fine. The other method that I kind of mentioned was some people have good luck by not covering them. So again, I would highly suggest if you are planting or pre-sprouting ranunculus, try it a couple different ways, see what works for you, see what process you prefer. Let me know what you have good luck with. If there's another method that you're doing that I haven't tried yet, let me know. I'm up for trying new methods that may be easier, cheaper, or more effective. All right, couple last notes about ranunculus and where you go from here. So ranunculus like to germinate in dark. I had a couple questions about that when I started ranunculus seed last year, and even the seeds prefer to germinate in the dark. They are covered with soil, so that is partially dark, but I would suggest, and what I do is I cover it with another tray. Whether this is just another 10-20 tray, maybe a top to a Tupperware container, a plate of some kind, or maybe you have this put on a shelf with a cardboard box or something put over the top of it. Not over the top, but higher so it blocks most of the light that comes onto it. That would be absolutely fine. And then ranunculus prefer to germinate in cooler temperatures. So I tend to put my trays on the floor in our basement. It's a cement basement and it's pretty cold down there. Same with the ranunculus seeds. I did not grow any ranunculus seeds this year. I used them all up last year. I would absolutely start ranunculus from seed again if I were to find colors that I am excited about. So keep an eye on them, check on them every day. If it looks like the topsoil is getting a little dry, mist them with some water. Don't go overboard on the water. You do not want them sitting in water. Just keep them, water them fairly regularly. And then after a few days, like not very many, maybe 4 days, you will start to either see green growth coming out the top of the corm, or you might see little white roots starting to come out from the little tentacles. Once you see that from most or a lot of the corms in the tray, take the cover off, put them under grow lights or a south-facing window if that's what you have, and the growth is going to start coming. From there, you can plant them outside depending on your temperatures. I will probably wait till March. I'm hoping early March I can put these outside under the tunnel. Again, temperatures need to be about freezing or above. They're not too picky. So get them out there as soon as you are able to work the soil and the temperatures hold at freezing or above. Cover them if it's going to get cold, but that's about it. Ranunculus are super easy. Fun this time of year because I'm not doing many other seeds at the time, so this 2 or 3 step process is absolutely fine for me. You can pot them up, I did mention that. So after they've started to root or grow green growth, if they have a couple leaves on them, you can pot them up. Just take out each corm, you'll find that the roots kind of untangle themselves like hair, and pot them in a 4-inch pot or something until you're ready to pot them out. Hopefully I can give you an update on how these ranunculus are growing in a couple weeks. If not, I hope to show you them out in the garden. Let me know if you have any questions. I may or may not know the answer, but I will absolutely find the answer if I can. And we will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.